Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, 5 police officers facing murder charges. We'll have more on that brutal story. We've got the developments. Plus, today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. We'll show you a social initiative that is connecting Holocaust survivors to the younger generation.
A group of young Israelis wanted to commemorate the Holocaust in a different way. They gathered in one home, they invited a Holocaust survivor, and it was a very unique experience.
Then later, the founder and lead vocalist of the rock band Remedy Drive is on the front lines of fighting human trafficking.
It started with me just writing songs, hoping that my songs would contribute to a difference.
We'll introduce you to the organization he's connected to help further fight the crime. All these stories and more coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
I want to begin this half hour with police body cam video set to be released today showing the arrest and assault of Tyre Nichols. 5 black police officers face murder charges in his brutal death. Gary Lane has more on our top story from Memphis.
The public awaits the release today of police body cam footage that shows the pepper spraying and brutal assault by Memphis police against Tyre Nichols. Nichols died after the traffic stop. Memphis police are bracing for possible public outrage once the body cam footage is released. After-school events in the city are canceled today. Nichols' mother, Rovon Wells Nichols, says she understands the footage is awful, but she doesn't want violence.
But from what I hear, it's going to be horrific. But I want each and every one of you to protest in peace.
The 5 officers involved in the attack on Nichols are charged with second-degree murder, assault, and aggravated kidnapping. Steve Mulroy, Shelby County District Attorney General, says although each of the police officers played different roles in the killing, they are all responsible.
Under the laws of Tennessee, second-degree murder is a knowing killing.
Memphis prosecutors say the body cam footage shows officers first used pepper spray on Nichols during the traffic stop. That's when the 29-year-old got away from the police. Nichols' family says Tyre ran away because he was only trying to get home. Police caught up with Nichols, and that's when they brutally assaulted him. An ambulance was called to the scene after Nichols complained of shortness of breath. He ended up in the hospital with life-threatening injuries and died 3 days later.
The actions of these officers were awful, and no one, including law enforcement, is above the law.
The charges against the 5 police officers came after an investigation determined they violated a number of department policies, including excessive use of force, duty to intervene, and duty to render aid.
This is not just a professional failing. This is a failing of basic humanity toward another individual. This incident was heinous, reckless, and inhumane.
Speaking through one of their attorneys, the 5 black police officers say they are innocent of the charges against them.
No one is guilty until a jury says they're guilty.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
Where the Israel Defense Forces have launched a powerful raid saying they took the action to prevent a major future terrorist attack. Chris Mitchell brings us that story now from Jerusalem.
Overnight, the IDF targeted an underground rocket manufacturing site belonging to Hamas after Islamic groups fired several missiles into southern Israel. The terror groups fired the rockets to avenge the death of suspected Islamic Jihad members killed in a daytime raid by the IDF on a refugee camp in the city of Jenin. A military spokesman said the raid stopped an imminent terror attack, described as a ticking time bomb. 9 Palestinians died in the raid, most of them suspected terrorists, along with a 60-year-old woman. The IDF said it was investigating the woman's death. The Palestinian Authority declared 3 days of mourning, said it would cut off security cooperation with Israel in Palestinian cities and villages, and plans to go to the UN.
We will go to the Security Council to implement the International Protection Resolution for the Palestinian people under Chapter 7 and to stop unilateral measures.
Israel's police chief and the Minister of National Security praised the soldiers for protecting Israeli civilians. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said the state of Israel will continue to operate in any place and at any time against anyone who aims to harm the citizens of Israel. Israeli security forces are now on high alert throughout Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank. A State Department spokesman said the U.S. recognizes the security challenges facing Israel, but is deeply concerned about the escalating violence. The clashes come just days before U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is due to arrive for talks with Israeli and Palestinian leaders. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
An elderly Arizona woman who was arrested for feeding the poor refuses to give up her inspirational ministry. And now she is heading to court to fight for the right to feed the homeless in her local park. Here's Norma Thornton's story.
I don't care what they say. They are wrong and I'm right.
Norma Thornton isn't backing down. Bullhead City Police arrested the 78-year-old Arizona grandma for feeding the homeless in a public park, a violation of a city ordinance.
As the day was just finishing up and everybody was pretty well gone, last gentleman came up. I dished up his food, and just as he was walking away, a couple of police officers, drove up and asked what I was doing.
Then officers informed Thornton of her arrest.
Technically, I'm supposed to be handcuffing you and everything too, but I'm not going to do that. I don't think you're a hardened criminal. I don't think you're out to hurt me.
I'm not out to hurt anybody.
Although the misdemeanor was later dropped, Thornton was reportedly told she would face jail time if found guilty of any future feedings in the park.
The number one motivation is my Savior, Jesus Christ, and his Father. We are told repeatedly, the first and most foremost commandment is love. Love thy neighbor. Love your fellow man. He tells several times, what you do to the least of my people, you so do to me.
Diana Simpson, Thornton's attorney, says she initially found Thornton's plight hard to believe.
It's such a wild story. You think at first that this can't be real. It can't be the case that a city is arresting someone for helping those in need. And then you find out that it is the case, unfortunately, that's exactly what's going on. And that violates the Constitution.
Simpson said her client is suing to stop the ordinance and win back the right to feed the homeless again in the park.
We want to get Norma back to where she was before all of this started. Serving folks in the park is really the best place that she's found.
Thornton, now feeding the poor a few blocks away in a private lot, leaves us all with a deeply convicting message.
There is no reason under this earth that any human being should be hungry in this country that we live in. Actually, anywhere in the world, there's no reason for that. Our world is so full of food and luxuries. Why should anyone be hungry? I can't understand.
City officials say the ordinance is to ensure the cleanliness in the park and safety for those being fed. As the battle continues, one thing is clear. Thornton isn't giving up anytime soon. This is Billy Hollowell for CBN News.
Coming up, Holocaust survivors are sharing their stories to millions around the world. We're going to sit down with one woman who was sent to Auschwitz and witnessed Nazi atrocities firsthand. Hear why she says you can still find something good, even in the darkest moments. Stay with us. It is Holocaust Remembrance Day. Sadly, as time passes, fewer and fewer Holocaust survivors remain to share the stories of hardship and survival at the hands of Nazis. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl shows us one initiative that is teaching the younger generations this history with an up-and-close personal look.
It's called Zikaron Basalon, Living Room Remembrance, a powerful way for Holocaust survivors to tell their stories directly to young people, carrying a longer-lasting impact.
It is a social initiative commemorating the Holocaust, connecting between Holocaust survivors and the younger generations in a small, intimate setting.
Sharon Buenos, global director of Zikaron Basalon, recently invited about 20 international journalists to her apartment to experience this approach for themselves.
About 11 years ago, a group of young Israelis wanted to commemorate the Holocaust in a different way. They found that the traditional way of ceremonies was no longer enough, and they were looking for new meaning for the Holocaust National Remembrance Day. They gathered in one home, they invited a Holocaust survivor, and it was a very unique experience.
Born in 1923, Hannah Malka clearly remembers as a 16-year-old when Nazi Germany took over her home country of Czechoslovakia in just one night.
And at the time, it was the greatest democracy in all Europe. And we knew what happened in Germany, but we never thought that Hitler will try to come to a democratic land. Then one morning, before I went to school, I opened the radio and I heard the president say, "Be all of you quiet, don't fight, don't do anything. The Germans occupied Czechoslovakia."
In the Czech capital's Jewish quarter, life continued for 2.5 years. Then, in November 1941, Adolf Hitler said he was giving the Jews a city and began transporting them to the Theresienstadt ghetto.
All the Jews came to this place, and instead of 6,000 people, we were 50,000 people. So you can imagine how full it was. I was living in a flat of Czech family, so we were about 70 people in a 2-room flat with one WC and with one place to wash themselves.
The true intention for Theresienstadt was a transit station for sending Jews to concentration camps.
There were always transports. Always people came and people got away. But we didn't know where they go because we had no idea that there is a place like Auschwitz. We just felt that this must be something worse than Theresienstadt. There were little children there, and the children were not with their parents. We hope that the children are our future, that at least if we won't survive, the children will survive.
The Nazis also used Theresienstadt as propaganda, calling it the spa town, to conceal the true purpose of the concentration camps.
They made it very beautiful because there should come a commission of the Red Cross. There were flowers suddenly, and there was a coffee house. There were 2 people living in a room and not 50. And the Red Cross came. And they said it's not necessary to go to Auschwitz because probably everything what they say about Auschwitz is just the same as what they say about Theresienstadt.
The Nazis eventually sent Hannah and the other children to Auschwitz in Poland. Hannah was among 200 girls that were then sent to Germany. She spent the rest of the war as a maid or working in a factory for the Germans. In 1946, Hannah came to pre-state Israel. Like many survivors, she didn't share her story for years. Later, she felt the need to speak out when she saw how people nowadays often treat each other.
When I hear how people belong one to the other, it just hurts me because in Theresienstadt there was so hard and we had nothing to eat and nothing to do. You never stole from someone and you never did something bad. In the opposite, when someone needed help, you always helped him.
Participants in the salon experience also have the opportunity to share their thoughts and ask questions.
What I liked is that you are trying to tell us not only the horror, but also positive stories. I like your sense of humor.
You said you went back to Germany as well, right?
For a long time, I didn't want to go to Germany. But after that, I said it's silly because they were good Germans too.
What is the message that you want everyone here to live here today?
Even in the worst situations, you can find something good and something nice, and you can find nice people.
Zikaron Basalan is now in 2 million homes in 65 countries, with private individuals hosting evenings like this one.
The Holocaust is not only the story of the Jewish people. I think all of us should carry that torch of remembrance and carry a testimony with us.
Buenos says she hopes one day 6 million homes will light a light to remember each victim of the Holocaust. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Tel Aviv, Israel.
Who knows how...
And you can see more news from the Middle East Bureau team, including Chris Mitchell, on the CBN News Channel tonight at 8:30 Eastern. You can also find it on the CBN News app or YouTube. That is Jerusalem Dateline. Still ahead, see how the rock band Remedy Drive is on the front lines against human trafficking. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to CBN News Watch. God's hand is at work no matter how dark it may seem. He brings light. David Zock is living proof. He's the founder and lead vocalist of the rock band Remedy Drive, and he has been on the front lines of the fight against human trafficking for more than a decade.
I've been given this front row seat to the modern day abolition movement, and it's been the privilege of my life to watch ordinary people step into extraordinary roles in the arena of freedom and justice and mercy.
How does your life put you then on the front lines of the fight against human trafficking?
Like 08, 09, and even earlier than that, I started writing some lyric having to do with boy soldiers, but it came to a head in 2012 when my daughter and I watched a documentary about slavery, about child soldiers and exploitation, and she said, "Dad, why not God protect those boys?" And for me, that was when I said, I can't go on writing music and living my life in such a way that doesn't take this particular tragedy seriously. So it started with me just writing songs, hoping that my songs would contribute to a difference. Matt Parker, who founded the Exodus Road with his wife Laura, was a fan of our band.
We merged our rock and roll band with a counter-trafficking organization called the Exodus Road. We use our concerts and our albums to shine a light on slavery.
And so Matt knew who I was, sang my songs in the car while he was driving. And he came to town looking for an artist to talk about the work of the Exodus Road, the counter-trafficking work of the Exodus Road. So in the middle of me writing this, watching all these documentaries about work like the work that he's doing, he's coming to Nashville looking for a band and set up a bunch of meetings. I was the only one that didn't cancel. And then he started talking about the work, spying on traffickers, using hidden cameras and cyber forensic software to find evidence of what they're doing. And I kind of sheepishly asked, "Hey, what do you think if I came along and just to see?" So that's how it started for me. I got to kind of shadow him on a trip, meet some of the team, and start doing undercover work, you know, just surface level stuff on that first trip. And it just turned into what it is now.
What do you remember most about that first trip?
I'd never been face to face with poverty like I was that first time in Southeast Asia. And the desperation that surrounds poverty, like I'd never seen it. And because I'd done all this research about sex trafficking, about slavery, leading up to that, I felt like I was going to be able to handle it, but it shook me to the core.
Wow.
Like to see hundreds and hundreds of women being sold and teenage girls in clubs, but then on the side of the road, and it doesn't look like what you think it would look like. Just that desperation, it impacted me deeply, and the sense of helplessness, like it's too big of a scale, this one city alone. Can I really do anything? I left feeling too small, too inadequate.
How do you keep from getting overwhelmed in light of the difficulty of what it is you do?
I think I do get overwhelmed. I'm trying to find that line, you know? Like, I don't think there's true fulfillment or true joy in this life without intentionally aligning ourselves with somebody else's sorrow. Like, that's what it means to be like Jesus Christ from Nazareth.
Yeah.
But it's so overwhelming. I've never wanted what's wrong to be made right so desperately. I hear people say we're the body of Christ, so let's act like it. Let's be the hands and feet, you know?
What do you think we in our comfortable world, what do we not know?
I don't think we know, one, what kind of desperate situation will put someone in a situation where they have to hope that the agency that's taking their kid from the hill country down to the major city, that's a legitimate agency that's going to employ them at a hotel or a restaurant. You know, it's a desperate move. The kids are 15. My girl's 15 now, so when I started this work, she was 5. Why can a whole culture look the other way when this is obviously happening in broad daylight? But I also think, and this is hopeful, I think we don't know what kind of change we can make as one person, as one interview with you, one platform with CBN, one rock and roll band. The ripples that you and I can create turn to tidal waves, and I believe that with all my heart. And so we're celebrating coming up on 1,000 traffickers that we participated in arresting, and coming up on 2,000 people whose freedom we've participated in impacting. And there's a temptation to be like, it's not that much. But I want to be like the kid on the hillside. Everybody said, man, no, Jesus doesn't eat your lunch. He's like, but I got 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And that's what I have. And that's what anybody watching has. They have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And put that out there and see what happens. And in that situation, Jesus lifted it up above his head and blessed it. Yes. And 10,000 people were fed, you know.
Stay with us. Your Faithful Friday is coming up next. And welcome back to CBN News Watch. Right now, it is time for your Faithful Friday. I'd like to leave these words of encouragement to you as we wrap this work week together. In your moments of personal prayer, I encourage you to ask God to make you the answer to someone else's prayers. You know what? You are blessed to be a blessing. So it's time to get to work on giving your time, giving your talent, giving your treasure. God trusted them all to you, but not for you. They're actually meant to move through you. With that word, I encourage you to make this a fabulous Friday and have yourself a wonderful weekend. On purpose and with purpose. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. I want to remind you can find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We would love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We look forward to seeing you right back here come Monday. Goodbye and God bless.